Hey guys, I think guys is just Brandon right now, but yeah, today we're going to talk about budgeting basics. This is going to be a 3 or 4 part series. Um, I'll start by just kind of introducing myself a little bit in regards to my experience with budgeting, which is completely just learned over time. Um, I didn't go to school for any sort of accounting type things. Um, It's just when Brandon and I got married in 2010, I had to start learning how to budget. And we took a class on how to create a budget spreadsheet, and I fell in love with it. And so that's where we are now. Um, we've been married for over 13 years. And so for over 13 years, I have been working um, on perfecting our budget, which now Brandon, since he's become self-employed, has taken over. But I'm still able to help other families, which is really cool. Um, and kind of figure out the nuances for different families or for different individuals for their own personal budgets. Now, that may be that you are paid infrequently. For instance, Brandon's self-employed, so we're paid infrequently, or rather not infrequently, but irregularly. Or if you're, on a 2-week pay schedule or a monthly pay schedule or whatever the case is, um, there are different nuances for each type of budget. But we're going to start off with the very, very basic of all basics. So I'm going to screen share. Okay. All right. So budgeting basics. I'm trying to get rid of this at the top of the screen. Okay, it's not showing on yours. Um, all right, so the first thing I want to talk about is just the elements of budgeting. I originally had this written as the budgeting commandments, but that felt kind of silly. But in my opinion, these are kind of the commandments of budgeting. Now, some of these really only pertain to people who identify as Christians, but most of it is really for everybody. So number one, understand that you are not the master of your money. And I know that sounds really weird, and I know that can really throw a lot of people off, and that can really strike our ego. But we'll get more into that in a few minutes. Number two, if you're understanding you're not the master of your money, then you should be praying throughout the budgeting process. That includes before you budget, while you're budgeting, after you're budgeting, while you're spending your money, making God part of the conversation throughout the entire thing, throughout the entire process. If you're working now, obviously there are a lot of people who are going to be doing this on their own. But if you are married or you're living with someone or in whatever capacity you are working with a partner, you guys need to be on the same page. This isn't going to work if only one person is committed to it and the other one is still spending the way they were before. And this isn't going to work if only one person understands and the other one is kind of putting their foot down. This is just how we're going to do it. It's just not going to work. Next is to be honest. We'll get into that in a minute, but that's a tough one for a lot of people. Plan for everything. There's a lot that we aren't really taking into consideration when it comes to spending our money. And it's kind of like, I know in 2023, a lot of us have counted calories before. And, so we're familiar with this idea that you can't forget the salad dressing that you put on the salad because that has calories too. It's the same way with budgeting. You can't forget the $5 Starbucks drink that you grabbed in the morning, or the candy bar that you got at the gas station. It's only a couple bucks here and there, but that really adds up. And finally, updating your budget regularly. So we'll go through these a little bit at a time. Understand you are not the master of your money. Understand. Oh, hold on, friends. There we go. All right. Understand, believe, and remember what you have was given to you. At any point, your hard work could be in vain. You could lose your job, become hurt at your own business, and not be able to work, have your accounts hacked, need to take care of a loved one. At any point, you could lose everything. What you have, you are allowed to have. Being a good steward means understanding, believing, and remembering that God has given you everything you have, and you are expected to be wise with it. Now, I mentioned that this can be really hard for a lot of people. My husband works very hard. My dad works very hard. My grandparents all have worked so hard, and really just dug in and created the lives that they have. But the truth of the matter is, as I mentioned before, at any point, it could all be undone. At any point, Brandon could hurt his back and no longer be able to work. And we would have to completely figure out a new route.
Oh no.
There are so many things like that in life. There are illnesses that come up out of nowhere. There are so many things that happen in life that could destroy everything you've worked for if you are not prepared. And budgeting is just the beginning of preparing for those things. If we understand that, if nothing else, if we just understand that the money that we're making, the money that we're responsible for, is not because we're just so great, but because God has allowed us to have those things. He has allowed the hard work to work out. Then that's the beginning of all of it. Because now that we understand that, we can say, okay, I'm not responsible for all of this in the sense that I'm so great and I made it happen, but I am responsible for it as the gift that God has given me. So understanding that, understanding the responsibility, understanding the weight of it and taking it seriously is going to be step one. Okay, next, pray before, during, after, and handling your budget. If we believe that God is the master of our money and we believe that everything we have has been given, gifted, or allowed by God, it only makes sense to consult with him constantly. So in our family, Brandon is the one who has the income, and I spend the income. I support him, and I support him from our home and with our family. But I also am the one who does the grocery shopping, and I'm the one who, for the longest time, was paying the bills, as far as like actually going online and paying the bills. So we have to be a team in that. But there's a third party who is also part of our team, the leader of our team, and that is God. Now, this is not something we did right in the very beginning when we were first learning how to budget, and this isn't something that we always do now. So in creating this program, I realized like we really need to be back to doing this. But I mean, the truth is you have a third teammate, or if you're working by yourself, you have a teammate. If we believe that God is in control, then we should definitely be consulting him. We should definitely be asking him for guidance, and that he would bless our efforts in providing for ourselves and for our families, providing for our ministries, or whatever the case is. So that's going to be step 2, prayer. 3, always, I said steps, but there's not really steps. These are the elements. Always work on the same page as your partner. If you're working alone, I would encourage you to find a partner who can, if nothing else, be an accountability partner, someone that excuse me, someone that you trust to be there for you and encourage you, but who's maybe like a step ahead of you or so in the idea of budgeting and the budgeting process. Um, and that's someone that you may be able to, make a sort of contract with. I will not buy coffee more than 1 day a week or whatever, because this is what is in my budget. If you are living with a parent or a spouse or a friend or whatever, and you do have someone that you are budgeting with, you guys got to be on the same page. Forever and always, you have to be on the same page. This does not work otherwise. I wrote here, if budgeting with a partner, you must be on the same page about every single aspect of your budget. No one person lording over the other or giving in for the sake of peace. You must listen, explain, compromise, and in the end, come to decisions you can agree on. There are definitely, and have been over the last 13 years, times where Brandon and I did not necessarily agree on how something should be spent or some amount of money should be saved or whatever. There are definitely times I want to spend money and Brandon says, I don't think this is a good thing for us to do. And we discuss it and we come to a conclusion. And I may not always agree, or I may come to understand and then just respect that this is how he feels. He feels strongly about it. Let's move on. There are also times where Brandon recognizes the needs that I've put forth and says, okay, well, I don't necessarily want to do this, but let's spend the money this way. Being on the same page doesn't necessarily mean that you guys are going to both be perfectly happy, and that's where compromise comes in. Respecting each other, understanding, and giving each other a safe space to come to some sort of agreement. Then you make the decision. And it has to be both of you. Be honest. Okay, guys, this one is really tough for a lot of us. Be honest with yourself and with your partner, and give them a safe space to be honest with you about your spending, saving, and earning behaviors. Do you tend to spend more money when you feel sad or excited or guilty? When you're on your period? When the church needs money? When there's a birthday? Tip: it is much easier to stay on track and be honest if you and your partner are able to hold each other accountable. The simplest way to achieve this is by sharing a bank account. I know not everybody can share a bank account. I know that there are a lot of circumstances where that does not work out. A big one that I've heard over the years numerous times is either my spouse or I am divorced and paying child support, and the child support comes directly out of that bank account, or my spouse's bank account is directly connected to their business, and so it doesn't make sense for, whatever. If there is any way for you to find a way to share a bank account, or your multiple bank accounts in our case or whatever, to have both of your names on that so you are both responsible and accountable to that, that is my recommendation. It also makes the process of budgeting a bit more simple because you're not looking in multiple different areas for your income and expenses. Now, in our situation, we do something called point hacking or credit card hacking or whatever. It's not hacking, but it's where we utilize credit card points. We pay off our credit cards on time, and we utilize credit card points for travel and things like that. Travel hacking, I think, is what it's called. But yeah, so we do have multiple places now, 13 years in, 13 years of budgeting in, we do have multiple places where we're looking at income and expenses. But to start off, the simpler you can make this process, the better it's going to be. I have a message. Good. Okay. All right. So this is kind of a big one. Be honest. I know that there are some of us who have very giving hearts and who just really love people and love to do nice things for people. Stop it. If it is not in your budget, you don't have it. If that's it, that's it, friends. Like, if you know little Timmy's birthday is coming up and it's not in your budget, then you can't buy for little Timmy. That's it. If you do, then it's got to come from something else. Maybe you don't get to go out to eat because you had to go buy a little birthday present for little Timmy. Don't go spending money that you don't have. That's why you need a budget. If you want to be able to give a couple bucks to the guy that you saw on the corner who was holding up a sign, then you need to either have that cash or you need to have it in your budget that you're going to be able to go give that man a couple bucks. However you want to do it. When if you're in church, you know that around Easter, they're going to be taking up a special offering. If you didn't budget for it, you don't have it. Period. In everything your sweetheart wants to do, if you did not budget for it, you don't have it. So if it's important to you, budget for it. For me personally, I know that right around that time of the month for me, I get very emotional and I want very emotional spending habits. So we have budgeted for that. There's about $50 in a PMS budget every month so that when I'm feeling emotional, I can say I have 50 bucks. There are different things that might seem silly to someone else. If you know that you need your coffee from that special coffee place every single morning on your way to work, budget for it. Another thing that's going to do is it's going to make you see in reality, black and white, right in front of you, how much you're really spending on these things, where you can be trimming your budget in ways you did not think you could trim your budget. It's there. But if you're not budgeting for it, then you don't have it. Treat your budget like cash. Okay, plan for everything. Plan for and budget everything and add things as they come up. Some items include medical expenses, special occasions, school expenses, tag and ID renewals, birthdays, school pictures, etc. Tip, give regularly instead of emotionally to avoid giving unfaithfully or unwisely. Okay. We have an entirely different document. It was different. Now I have it on our budget spreadsheet, but we have a document which we call additional expenses. You may call it whatever you want, but that means that these are the items outside of our normal daily spending habits. When we had Amazon Prime, we knew on our daily expenses that in December, Amazon Prime was going to hit and we were going to have this amount of money added to our budget for that month. If you're going to the dentist every 6 months, then whichever months you're going to the dentist, you need to add onto your additional expenses sheet that you're going to the dentist and approximately how much you're expecting it to cost. Same with eye doctors. If you have like monthly medications that you're going to be getting, you need to add that to your monthly budget, to your daily budget, to your weekly budget, however it is that you decide to do it, that needs to be added. Think through as much as you can. Go through your bills, go through your debit card and credit card expenses, do all of that and write down everything. And what you can't trim needs to be on your budget. Now, I know this one is a little bit of a hot topic, giving. If you are a person who is giving, whether it be tithe and offering to your church, or if it's some sort of other ministry that you're giving to, or you're giving to like feed the children, or you have anything like that you are giving to, if you can go through your expenses, see how much you want to and are willing to give, and give that amount every time, then as I said here, that's going to avoid giving unfaithfully or unwisely. When I say unfaithfully, I mean, I would normally give this amount, or I could technically afford $100, but I really want to go to this concert, or I really want to go celebrate my friend's birthday. So I'm actually only going to give $5 this month, but it's okay because usually I give $100. That is unfaithful giving. Giving unwisely means that Easter offering is coming up and I really only have $100, but I'm going to give this month this much more. I'm going to give $500 and I'll just have to figure it out later. And then you can't pay your car note and now you're in trouble. That's giving unwisely. So we need to figure out how much we are able and willing to give, and give that amount every time. And if you know something is coming up and you find that you are going to want to give more, guess what? It goes in the budget. Put it in the budget. Plan for it. If you know that in April you are going to want to give more offering, if you know that at Thanksgiving you're going to want to help with coats and things like that at your church, budget for it. That's always the answer. Okay, number 6, update your budget regularly with your partner. If you're working with a partner, and again, I do stress that you work with a partner, pick the day and time each week that you will meet together to discuss your budget. As you work through your receipts, bank statements, check register, calendar, and whatever else, update the budget you've created, which goes back to, if I realize that I'm getting coffee all the time, it's got to go on the budget or it's got to be cut. If I realize that I'm going to have a special offering at church, it goes on the budget or it's got to be cut. Whatever. Gas prices have gone up. It's got to go on the budget. Tip, if you update the budget each day, that weekly meeting will be shorter and simpler, and you'll have far less of a risk of getting something forgetting something you spent money on. When I was handling the budget, I updated it every morning and then went over it weekly with Brandon. Now that Brandon's doing the budget, he updates it every morning. He goes through our bank statements and receipts, texts me. If I spend money, because he is the one who does the budget now, if I spend money, I typically text him, I spent money on this and it was for this reason, it comes out of this part of the budget. That's just something that we have worked out together. Now, we don't meet regularly because after 13 years of this, we have come up with a different dynamic for us, which is whomever is handling the budget, the other person is saying, I spent this much at this place. Here's where it comes from out of the budget. When our play budget gets low, and I'll talk to you about that later, or our grocery budget is low, he says, hey, this is how much we have left for this many days of the month. So we are not meeting weekly, but we are consistently communicating about our budget, our income, our expenses, our savings, and why and how to make adjustments. Updating regularly is such a big key to success here. It's something that you want to make sure you are doing all the time. That's it as far as the different elements. Now, as far as the process goes, it's kind of 4 steps. Step 1 is going to be to commit to this. We'll discuss it, but you have to commit. Truly, really and truly. Not new year, new me commit, not summer body by May commit, but like actually commit to this. Step 2 is going to be to really dig in your heels and do the work to get started. Step 3, I will help you to build a budget. I will start off by teaching just a base budget. I use Google Sheets, so if you're not familiar with that, try to familiarize yourself with it before we get there. But if you're familiar with the spreadsheets, the Word spreadsheets, or Microsoft spreadsheets. It's very similar. And then I will be available to anyone who needs help with more nuanced budget spreadsheets. And then finally, keeping it going. And this is going to be where you make a plan with your partner about when and how you're going to communicate about this, and making sure that you're checking in and changing things pretty constantly. But those will be our different sessions. So we're almost finished. We're going to go through just number 1 today, and that is going to be commit. There it is again. All right. Make a plan, stick to it. With your partner, pick the day and time each week you will meet together to discuss your budget. As you work through your receipts, bank statements, check register, calendar, and whatever else, update the budget you've created. And again, if you are going through it every day, then it just makes it so much easier. So that's going to be your first step. We'll have another session next week, the following week, and the following week. We'll do it noon on Saturdays. But this one is really important. I've even given you a little homework. So what I want you to do over this very first week, and you have a whole week to get it done, is throughout the week, discuss with your partner, why is budgeting important to each of us? Will we work together? And for some of us, we need to be figuring out how we will work together. Just because you love and are married to somebody does not mean that you work well together in certain things. You guys may have polar opposite spending habits. You may have completely different ideas about how to obtain an income and how important it is to work hard for your income. In single income families, you need to make sure that you're on the same page about what the spousal support is for the spouse who is not bringing in the money, and vice versa, what support is expected by the spouse who is bringing in the money. Are you going to commit to regularity and honesty? Regularity in meeting together and in communicating about this, and honesty about those spending habits. Honesty about how much work are you willing to do to make the money that you need to spend the way you want to spend, or to pay off your debts, or whatever the case is. So, homework number 1, discussion. And you have to give each other a safe space to do this. There can't be lashing out. There can't be ugly words or sarcasm or being unkind. This has to be a moment where you and your partner, whomever that person is in your life, can be honest with each other in a safe space. Because there's a reason that one of the number one reasons behind divorce is money related. There's a reason for that. This is a really sensitive subject. So offer each other a safe space to do this. Understanding, patient, kind, loving, and have these big conversations. Number 2 of your homework is now going to be to create a plan. You have shared why this is important. You have agreed to work together. You have agreed to be honest with each other. You've had these important discussions. Now create a plan. What day of the week or what time of each day are we going to communicate about this? If you're spending money, are we going to share with each other all throughout the day, every penny that we spend, to make sure that we're exactly on the same page and there's no surprises or upsets? Create your plan about what time and day or times and days you guys are going to communicate, and then do that. And then the third step, and this one is going to be a little bit more time consuming, and this can wait until after the next session if you need to. But your next step is going to be to dig into your calendar and bank accounts and start making note of those recurring expenses or the expenses that you're noticing you tend to have more often, and include the exact amounts and the due dates, because you don't want to be late on your bills. But this is where those things we mentioned earlier are going to come into play. Kind of creating that additional expenses sheet, school pictures, school lunches, gas for your car, your different bills for the house or for your business, or whatever the case is, whatever you are finding is happening pretty consistently or just at all, go ahead and make notes of those. If I know that I'm going to get Starbucks on the way to work 5 days a week, definitely want to account for that. So dig into your calendar for special events, holidays, birthdays, etc. Write those things down if you know that they're things that you like to spend money on. Go into your bank account, plan for your, if you know that one of the things you're going to want to be saving up for or planning for or will eventually spend money on is like your Christmas holiday time, Thanksgiving travels, things like that. Make note of those things too. And we can come to those in a few weeks, and I'll discuss with you how to save up for those things and why it's important to have them on your calendar and on your budget. So that's homework. It's going to be discussion, planning, and then getting down to the nitty-gritty and making the notes of the items, how much it cost, and the dates things are due if they have recurring due dates. So that's everything. Thank you guys for sticking with me. I know this was kind of a lot of information for the very first one. I don't know how to get out of this part of my screen. But yeah, that's gonna be, oh, I see Brandon's here.
I've always been here.
I don't know how to get my screen back to normal.
It should give you the option to stop screen sharing.
Oh, yep, there it is. Thanks.
I think I see your mom's here.
Yeah.
What up, GB? Make sure you stop the recording.
Okay.
That was really awesome, man. Like really well done.